Now, we owned our Model S for about 18,000 miles. I've driven about another 2,000 to 3,000 miles in a wide variety of other Teslas, the S, the X, the 3, not the Roadster yet, need to get that. Anyway, I sold it and the plan is to buy another Tesla in the near future. We've got a BMW i3 which we love, and I've also been fortunate enough to drive quite a lot of the other electric cars on the market. So I feel I'm in a reasonably good position to quite unbiasedly say whether I think Tesla make the best EVs in the world. The first one is a very subjective debate, and that is to do with the looks. Because I cannot convince you that you are right or wrong about what you think of a car. That's completely ridiculous. Personally, I really like how Teslas look. The Polestar 2, for example, is an amazing car, but I just don't like the look of it. It's just a bit boring and boxy to me. But that's coming from someone who drives an i3 that is probably one of the most Marmite cars on the road. So when it comes to looks, don't listen to anyone, go with what you like. The next point is performance. Now, performance depends on what you class as performance, because if you are the stereotypical American and you turn up to a stoplight and you come up next to a Corvette and you launch your Tesla Model 3 Performance and you beat it, and that gives you the best grin of your life, then arguably Teslas are pretty much your best chance of getting that enjoyment out of your car. If you want to take it on track, the Model 3 Performance has now been shown to be able to do laps and laps of most circuits without any problems. And with a few little upgrades, such as upgrading the brake lines and brake pads, you can have a really good track day car. And this is something that's not really there in the EV world for other brands. However, if your ideal performance is, pure handling, then in a lot of ways, something like the Jaguar I-Pace is going to be better than a Tesla Model S, and you've got big cars both ways. Performance comes down to whether it's handling and which of the particular Teslas you're looking at. So a lot of that comes down to take the cars for a drive, try to get it on roads you really enjoy and see how they handle. The other thing to consider is whether you go for the biggest alloys or you go for some of the smaller alloys. It's well known in the UK that cars with a little bit more tyre height can handle a lot better on our back roads, which is where personally I get a lot of enjoyment from. So the idea of running the biggest possible alloys on a Tesla Model 3 Performance, for example, is less desirable on some back roads than it would be on, to run, say, the aero alloys. So that's another consideration. But yeah, performance, Tesla's pretty much up there with anything, especially the Model 3. And the Model Y as well, if you're living in America, you can actually buy them, try to sell us some, buy them. So performance, yeah, Tesla's pretty much the best. But if you want handling, then there's some other really good cars out there, like Polestar, I-Pace, some others, so yeah. Now, the point that most people would argue is 100% true is that Tesla have really nailed technology. And this comes in various parts, because having Spotify is a godsend if you have kids. Being able to just press a button, play Metallica. I'm trying to get my girls into Metallica and metal. That's brilliant. And the fact that that's all built in is amazing. The fact that Teslas have the upgradability just from having a free download, like literally clicking a button on your phone and your car gets better, that is amazing. There's no disputing this fact. And I know that it's taken the rest of the industry a lot of time to catch up to even just having downloadable upgrades. So the technology in the Teslas is remarkable. And that system is just getting better and better with every upgrade. So when it comes to technology, yeah, it's brilliant. And don't be put off by the touchscreen. If you're one of these people who likes a lot of buttons, you need to live with a touchscreen, and then you just have this moment where you go, okay, that's cool. Because in normal driving, you're not pressing buttons all the time. You might just press up and down on, say, the heater or the volume. But there's a lot of the reels on the Tesla, you can program them, and voice commands, and actually, you've got the bar along the bottom with a lot of the most important parts. So yeah, if you're not sure about touchscreens, don't let that put you off something which is actually a phenomenal car all around the rest of it, because you probably get to like the touchscreen, because most people do. Now, another major positive of owning a Tesla is the Supercharger Network. I've done another video recently where I argue that actually in the UK, the charging network beyond Tesla is actually very good, and companies like Instavolt, done another video on them, are phenomenal. But there's something so good about the Supercharger Network, and it's twofold in my opinion. One, you turn up to the particular location and you've got a load of superchargers, and the sat-nav tells you how many are available before you get there, and the computer preheats or cools the battery so it's at the perfect temperature to receive those electrons. So the actual sites are really good, and there's a number of chargers. You're not turning up to a location with just one charger, which sucks, because if that charger's out of order, or there's a car on it, or someone's parked their Jeep on it, then you're screwed. But there's a second part to why the Supercharger Network is amazing, and I do this with pretty much every person I've ever showed a Tesla to. I go, push the button, navigate to Barcelona. Yes, you've got to wait a couple of minutes, but you have a chat about something else. And then you look at the sat-nav screen and it has worked out your route all the way from England, down into France, down into Spain, down to Barcelona. It tells you where to charge. You know those charger bays are going to be numerous when you get there. It's just amazing. And Kate and I have done a few road trips into Europe, and we just don't have to think about it. And this is where it's not quite there with the rest of the world, because you've got to jump on ZapMap, and yes, once you've got your hang around it, you know roughly what you're looking for, and I tend to have Google Maps and ZapMap open next to each other on a desktop, and you can work it out pretty quick, but you just don't even need to bother doing that in a Tesla. So yeah, Supercharger Network, amazing, but also the sat-nav and how it interacts with the Supercharger Network is phenomenal, and that is so important with an EV if you're planning to drive long distance. The next point is build quality, and this is an interesting one because there's been some reasonably well sort of known about issues, and they do suck. Like when we had the Model S, it was very rarely in a position where it was 100% faultless. There was always a little niggle. I kept a little file on my phone of a notes sort of file, and I listed all the little niggles, like this bit of trim's a little bit loose, or there's a bit of wind noise here, and it does get frustrating. And a lot of this comes down to what is your appetite for little niggles, because the rest of the system is so phenomenal that you've got these little niggles. Is that going to give you such a negative that the rest of it is suddenly rubbish? Or are you aware that you're buying into a company where their priority is the motor and the battery and the technology, and the rest of the car is not an afterthought, but it's there and not probably their biggest priority? It's a little bit like buying a Ferrari back in the 70s or 60s, when you bought the engine, you got the rest of the car for free. Now, personally, with the Model S, the niggles were niggles. Like, they weren't anything that stopped me. I never broke down. I never had a time where I just sort of threw the car keys down on the floor and hated the car. I loved it throughout my whole sort of 2-year ownership. And the niggles were there, but they didn't distract from the fact that it is such a phenomenal car to own, and I feel very fortunate to have my 2 years with it, and I can't wait to get the next one. So on that basis, it's a bit of a balancing act. The other thing you've got to be aware of is you've got a lot of rights as a buyer. So there's plenty of downloadable checklists you can buy when you pick up the car. Have a look at trim, have a look for paint problems. Make sure these are all recorded, and then chase Tesla to get them sorted. People have good and bad experiences of a lot of the service centres. On the whole, I think that they're working really hard. just be a human and talk to another human at the service centre when you drop your car off for these problems to get sorted. And the other thing to consider is that the Ranger service, which is the mobile Tesla sort of service that will come to your house, that's phenomenal for those little niggles. So personally, on the whole, I can fully sympathise with people who have issues with their Teslas, and I feel for them. But equally, the vast majority of the people I know with them just love them and either put up with the odd niggle or are just very, very content. Crikey, look at the i3. It's amazing, but the road noise sucks on bad quality A roads, which we have a lot around here. So on that balance, I'd rather have the Tesla with all the technology and the superchargers and everything else. So, yeah. As a final point, there's another thing to consider here, and that is the way that Tesla are constantly upgrading their cars. So we're in a position now in early September 2020, when there's a shareholder meeting at the end of the month and the battery day. You've got to be pretty stupid to think that there's not going to be any major announcements on that day about future cars. You know, whether that's going to be the battery density, different chemical makeup of the battery, longer ranges, bigger performance. Are they going to bring out a ludicrous Model 3? Are they going to bring out the plaid Model S and Model X? There's so many potential things just round the corner. And you've got to be aware of this when you go into Tesla ownership. When I bought the Model S, they just changed the ECU, and I had the cool graphite trim. So there's elements of it that I knew were as new as you could get. But by the end of my ownership, I was sat there with a big car with a 200-mile range when the newer versions were doing nearly 400 miles. So the technology is moving on quickly, and that can only be seen as a positive, but it's in a way that, you know, you look at something like the Jaguar I-Pace, it's not changed that much in the, you know, all the years it's been out, whereas the Teslas are constantly being upgraded and updated. And a lot of those upgrades you do get through the software updates, which is a massive positive, but then there'll be some things where they turn around and say, oh, sorry, that update's not applicable to your car. So it's not a negative, but just go into it with eyes open. You know, go into it like you would with an iPhone, where you know that in another year's time there's going to be a new iPhone. The updates might be massive, they might be minor. But don't let that put you off. Live in the moment, buy the car that's available now. In summary, let's go back to the original question. Do Tesla make the best EV? Yes. Do Tesla make the best quality and built cars? No. Do Tesla make the best value for money car? Probably. Do Tesla make the best looking car? That's personal preference. Would I rather have a Taycan Turbo S than a Model 3 Performance? Hell yeah. Would I want to pay for it? No. So this is one of those questions where the answer is it depends. It depends on your priorities as a buyer. If all you care about is getting the 0% benefit in kind and running a car that you can charge up and get 300 miles out of it, and you use Octopus Agile or Go and you get really cheap energy, yeah, go for a Tesla Model 3 long range. It's a great car. If your priorities are a little bit more complicated than that, then obviously there is more things to consider, and that is when the owners clubs and everything else come in. So if you're in the latter group, feel free to email me. If I probably know someone who's got the car you're considering, I can put you in touch and you can have an unbiased opinion. I've driven most things now. I'm more than happy to give an unbiased opinion. I don't make any money out of you buying a Polestar or an I-Pace or something, so, you know. Hope you've enjoyed this. As always, comment below what's your thoughts on this, dilemmas, thoughts, and please subscribe to the channel, because although we're pretty certain we're going to get a Model 3 next, we're going to try everything, because there's some really interesting cars out there, and who doesn't want to save a few quid and buy, say, the Skoda instead of the long-range Model 3. So yeah, thank you for watching, and hope to see you very soon on another video. See you soon. Bye.